So before building AGI, you should know what intelligence actually is supposed to do, right? So think about what intelligence actually does. Imagine a place without intelligence, like a desert or a beach or empty space or something like that, and then something with intelligence. Just first imagine something with just basic intelligence, like plants and like worms and stuff like that in a forest, and then think about incremental intelligence and eventually a place with human level intelligence, like cities and a place like that. Okay, so what is the difference? So the difference is you'd find more sights, sounds, patterns, a variety of patterns, activities, and you find more objects and even virtual, not just physical stuff but also virtual stuff, and like art and movies and music and things like that, right? So it's basically just uh more stuff, but you can't call it more stuff, right? So what exactly is it? It's not just more complex stuff, because well, I'll get to this part a little bit later, because we are not all just thinking about complex stuff all the time. We are also just doing simple stuff sometimes. um and it's not just complex stuff that always captures our imagination. It's like even simple shapes and things get our attention, and we try to do things related to that. So it's not just more stuff, it's not just more complex stuff, it's not just more novel stuff, it's not just more new things. It's actually the second best answer, novel stuff. But it is actually more subjective, higher order novelty. Let me explain that further. But before that, I want you to consider what happens with the brain. So you take a pinch of brain, just with a few hundred neurons or something like that, right? And just uh, think about just one important mechanism that goes on in the brain, that's called the Hebbian rule, which is, when neurons fire together, they wire together, right? Just remember that. So that thing happens in the brain. So you just take this pinch of brain, and then you connect inputs and outputs to it randomly. What will happen is a novelty seeking behavior. This is what I've shown in my first prototype. This happens because when you keep showing the same input or same image, or same percepts basically again and again, what happens is the same pathways become stronger per Hebbian rule, and then the output and then the activation flows really quickly to the output, because the pathway is like really strong because of Hebbian rule. And so when it goes to the output, it takes some action, so as to cause a change. So if it keeps seeing the same thing again and again, it quickly acts to bring about a change. But if you see something new, the activation now goes to a new pathway, different pathway, which is relatively weak, because it's new, obviously, right? So and then so it kind of suspends the output action, because the activation hasn't really gone to the output, so it temporarily just suspends output action. So in other words, it relaxes. So if you so the thing is, this is what the brain does. This is what a normal uh, a simple Hebbian spiking neural network does. Just connect inputs and outputs randomly to it, and what happens is it kind of maximizes novelty. What happens is, if it sees the same thing again and again, it acts pretty fastly and takes action so as to cause a change in the environment and bring about a change. But if it's seeing something new, it just relaxes the output. It just relaxes itself, or rather suspends output action, right? So this is what I've demonstrated in my prototype number one. So what it's doing is, the brain is obviously maximizing novelty. So imagine the brain is like several millions of layers deep, right? So coming back to the difference between novelty versus higher order, uh, subject to higher order novelty. So you go to the beach and then you keep seeing the beach waves, right? Even they are novel every single moment, but it's not higher order novel. Meaning, even though the even though in the first layer of your brain you're seeing different things every single moment, you're seeing different patterns every single moment, but they're all just in the end you're just seeing beach waves. That's it. So as it gets to the deeper regions of the brain, pretty much the same, in the deeper layers, the same set of neurons get activated again and again. So that way it kind of quickly reaches the output, and then after you kind of get bored and then you move away from that place trying to find something else. But after some time you come back, so it's all subjective for that particular observer, whatever that particular system finds novel or not. You know if you can really think about it, like you tell a story to someone who doesn't know what actually happened, he's going to be interested in hearing it. But if you say something that someone already knows, they're just going to quickly just not pay attention and move away, right? So it's like that. So this is what I mean by subjective higher order novelty. And there's another word for it, which is create. So this intelligence is supposed to maximize subject to higher order novelty, or intelligence supposed to create. That's what that's what the objective function of intelligence is. People say God is a creator, right? All the religions have said that. And but what's going to happen is people are going to say that I'm not saying anything new at all. But what I am saying is that I'm clearly saying that creativity, or in other words maximization of subject of higher order novelty, is what it should be the formal objective of the AGI system that we are creating. And I'm also saying that a simple Hebbian network will already do it. And if you start with like $1 trillion neurons on day one, you don't really have to wait for a million years for evolution to take place. So it'll all just happen within like a couple of years or something. So I've explained all these points in like real detail in the blog, and I've also demonstrated two things so far with the prototypes. One is, like I said, the first prototype shows the inherent novelty maximization instinct. Second prototype of sort of showed how some interesting behaviors can arise by, and how a simple Hebbian neural network already remembers things. It's not just me, like other people have also demonstrated how an Hebbian assembly can remember stuff, right? And it's also the third prototype that I'm going to be developing is the association prototype, like the Pavlov's bell and the dog experiment. So I'm going to be creating a prototype that does something similar to that, just to show that Hebbian rule can automatically associate one thing with the other, and it can thus go about creating a complex things. All these things that I've hypothesized in my paper and my other videos in this channel, if you go through. So I'm going to be creating a prototype for that. But in the end, people, it's just that if people don't, if people are in denial, they keep saying that I'm not saying anything new, because hebb rules already been known for like 100 years, and then creationism was already talked about by so many different people. So people say that I'm not really saying anything new, and I'm just guessing that something might work and all. But if you can't really appreciate the theory behind why I'm saying that this is exactly the objective function of AGI, and then this is exactly how you go about doing it, like by means of hebb rule. Uh, if you can't see and appreciate the points in that, I think you're just being dishonest, right? And I mean, I understand the instinct that people have. You don't really hype up anyone else other than yourself, right? Unless if it's already talked about, you just come in to throw in your opinion. But no one really just gets behind anyone else, and hypes anyone else. But I mean, I'm just hoping that this approach somehow gets famous and gets the required funding for it to scale up research on this, because we obviously need like a lot of a really huge network with like trillions of connections and all that. So um but yeah, my hope is just to see this approach become more popular. And yeah, let's see where it goes, and let's see if how many people are ready to really look into it and accept it, being and be honest.